A day after Zac Taylor told all of us that the Jamar Chase hold-in was a thing of the past, Jamar Chase is holding in again. Let's see what Zac Taylor had to say and talk about why Jamar Chase is back on his hold-in plan.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are Locked On Bengals on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube, everywhere you get your podcast. Shout out to the everydayers and all of you who make us your first listen. Appreciate all of you so very much. And if you're new to the show, maybe you're also sick of hearing about Jamar Chase's. We're sick of talking about Jamar Chase's hold-in at this point. Regardless, we will talk about the other things going on with the Cincinnati Bengals today. And if you're new, you can subscribe to stay up to date on everything happening with that Cincinnati football team. James, today's episode is brought to the folks by Gametime, where they can save $20 off their first purchase of tickets in the Gametime app using promo code LOCKEDONNFL. What time is it? Game time. Not game time for Jamar Chase, though. At least not yet.
Wow.
He has a week to get back to practice, really. If he's not practicing next Wednesday, then the red flags, which are already being cranked up the flagpole, let's say, will be all the way up there flying in full mast.
Yeah, I think when you hear what Zach had to say on Tuesday, and then it was a really weird time, so much so that I sent you a message because we're at practice. Practice started at 2 Eastern, and it was in the indoor facility. We're in the indoor facility, and the first thing I noticed was Joe Burrow was wearing a white jersey, not an orange jersey. He was wearing a game jersey, which I thought was kind of funny. And then Jamar watch was on, and you didn't see Jamar. And the indoor is about a block away from Paycor Stadium for those that don't know. And so, maybe he's on and they have buses. Maybe he's on a go-kart. Maybe he's going to come in. He's on his way. And then it gets to 2:04, 2:05. The individual warm-up stop and team stretch is going on. I message you like, Jamar's not here. I'm holding. Because you don't want to alarm people. That's the thing that we don't want to do. Everyone thinks that. My goal is not to alarm. I want to make sure as long as I can before I actually report what I'm seeing. So I waited till about 2:10. And then it's like, all right, I'm pressing send. And I press send. And at 2:13, he walked in, clearly not practicing, not participating. And it's something that is obviously surprising in a way. At the same time, Jamar, the way he walked in, the fact that he arrived late, the fact that he was clearly arriving, I'm not going to say he knew that video was going to be taken of him, but it was pretty easy for us to take video of him when he arrived because he wasn't arriving with other players and walking in with other players. To me, it's a message sent. Like, yeah, I did practice. I did come back. And I did participate. But I'm not happy here with this contract situation. And I want to get something done. Will it matter? Will it impact things? I'm not sure. But certainly Jamar is playing that card right now.
Yeah. We had the return to practice. Then we had CeeDee Lamb get a deal done.
Yep.
We had Zac Taylor say, he's going to practice. We're expecting him to practice. He'll be fine for week 1. And then Jamar maybe felt like maybe they're not hearing me. Maybe they need to hear me again. I would like a new deal.
Mm-hmm.
That could be all this is. And it could lead to a deal. That would be the
could
best
be all
scenario.
it is. That's a lot though,
well,
right? That's a big.
I guess I shouldn't minimize it. You're right. That could be what it is probably how I should have ended that sentence. And it probably is what it is. I think he's been pretty clear about this from the start, despite not directly communicating through his agent or to the media himself. That is what Jamar wants. And there is still time to get the deal done.
Yep.
That would be the best case outcome. And like I said, if by next Wednesday, we're still dealing with having to ask Zac Taylor and Joe Burrow, who will speak to the media before week 1, is Jamar going to play? then we're probably going to have some issues at that point.
For sure. We're getting to that point now, and it's interesting to say the least. And what else is interesting is Zac obviously talked yesterday and then wasn't scheduled to talk today, did talk today for just over 2 minutes. And you're going to hear every second of his 2 minute and 17-second session with the media right now.
Far away.
Has something changed between yesterday when you said that you expected Jamar to practice and today him not showing up?
Did I say that yesterday? I think every day is a new day. We'll keep working through it. Not going to make predictions on what tomorrow brings. At the end of the day, Jamar's a great dude. That means a lot to this team, and we'll just continue to take it day to day.
When does this become a distraction?
It's not. I mean, it's a one-off situation that you got to deal with, and again, we'll just continue to take it day to day.
You still expect him to play in the opener?
This is all part of that plan that we've talked about, so this is just the later stages of that plan. But I think it's wise for me just to say we're going to take it day to day and see what tomorrow brings.
As part of the plan, Zac, did you build in your own mind the fact that this could happen? Things could change. He could maybe not practice.
I think you learn enough to not let anything catch you off guard, and it's just, again, the smartest thing for us to do is just keep working through it, keep taking it day to day. Again, he's a huge member of our team, and appreciate him and look forward to getting him back hopefully at some point soon.
Is it fair to say when you talked to us yesterday that it was your expectation that he would go the rest of the season?
I think I probably put my foot in my mouth speaking too quickly, and it's just, again, this is a day-to-day situation. We'll just keep seeing it as that.
How often do you talk to Jamar?
I'll just keep that between he and I.
Is this going to impact the offensive ability?
No, I think we've got really good players, and that's what's good about us is we have really good depth and the skill position spot on offense. So a lot of guys work in at practice and get those reps, and so of course we'd love for him to be practicing and get those reps, but at the same time it does give other guys an opportunity to continue to step up in that role and show us why they're here. And so again, you got to find the positives in this situation, and there's a lot of positives to getting other guys work.
Is he fully healthy?
Yes.
I hate to fully ask for clarification again, but just to be, so I think the safest way to say it is that right now it's just day to day.
It's day to day. That's the best way to say it. Yeah.
Are you confident that if Jamar does not practice this week, he would still be able to go in the first game?
Yeah, he'd be able to go.
What are the conditioning like? So let's say he doesn't practice between now and then. Conditioning wise,
He does a really good job staying in shape.
So there's no if he right as of right now.
No, I trust he does a good job. He's taking that upon himself. He does a nice job there.
Well, there we go. He does a nice job there. But to your point, Wednesday, that will be the time. And the Bengals do practice Monday as well. So they'll be back at practice tomorrow, Thursday. Maybe you're listening to this Thursday. Then they'll have a few days off, practice again on Monday. But then official game week starts Wednesday, where they're going to install the game plan. And maybe they can install it a little earlier, but install out of the game plan and start preparing for the Patriots.
It would certainly be ideal to get him back before then as soon as possible. Get the deal done. Jamar will return to practice. It would be very simple in that way. I do notice a couple of things, though, around this situation that have been consistent throughout the process. Players, Ted Karras speaking in the locker room after practice on Wednesday, are still in Jamar Chase's corner, still have no issues with what's going on, understand what's going on from a business perspective. And Zac Taylor continues to have his players back. Those things have been constant throughout this process. And when we reflect on this, whenever we get around to reflecting on it, when it is officially a thing of the past, we will be able to probably see some of these patterns and trends and see a consistent story throughout that while we're going through it is not as clear. And these things often become more clear in retrospect. And whenever Jamar Chase gets that new deal in Cincinnati, it will probably become clear what was happening all along. And we just don't have the full story yet. But until...
until a deal gets done, we might not find out. And I'll say that Zac's in a tough spot. Rock hard place.
Mhm.
The rock is either Jamar or the Bengals front office, and then the other one is the other one. Like it's tough. And so for him to be the guy that has to address all of those things, is it part of his job? Yeah. Does it suck? Yeah, probably, clearly on a day like today. And so, what would be easy if he could, or easiest for everyone, if he could focus on the football side, which I think he was starting to do on Tuesday, and the business side of Jamar was like, hey, wait a dang second. We haven't gotten anything done yet. So hopefully something can get done.
The Bengals did complete some other business after cut downs, including a waiver claim to bolster their depth in the trenches and the practice squad starting to take shape. We'll talk about the addition they made on Wednesday, in addition to what we know about the practice squad so far, coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. If you want to get in shape, but you're having trouble staying motivated, make 5 Hour Energy shots part of your lifestyle. Get the energy boost you need to get fit. We all know sometimes you don't want to go to the gym. Well, you can take a 5 Hour Energy and give you the feeling and alertness so you can not only get in the gym, but do great work when you are in there. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick me up for getting stuff done. And that is why you have to get 5 Hour Energy. And they have a bunch of different flavors on the 5 Hour Energy website, from watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and so much more. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, and that's the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use promo code LOCKEDONFB. That's LOCKEDONFB to get 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th and on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. But again, go to 5hourenergy.com, use code LOCKEDONFB for 20% off. Go to 5hourenergy.com today.
Cincinnati Bengals made one waiver claim. And on the topic of waiver claims, I thought it was interesting. There were only 26 total waiver claims awarded to teams across the league.
Are we sure they only made one claim?
No, we're not. They were only awarded one claim.
There you go. Sorry. I want to make sure. I don't want people to be like, oh, why didn't they try to get more guys? They might have, but they got one guy.
Well, and if you look at the list of the players named, I'd be curious to know how many of them that person who is concerned that they didn't try to get more guys knows on the list of players. I would bet it's like 3 out of the 26.
It's not many,
that.
yeah.
There were about 800 to 1,000 players exposed to waivers over the last 24 hours, and about 26 of them were claimed in some capacity. The rest of them are negotiating practice squad deals. Some veterans were not exposed to waivers, signing with 53-man rosters. Samaje Perine, for example, landing with the Kansas City Chiefs. He decided if you can't beat them in Denver or Cincinnati in the last 2 years, I guess you just join them. And good for Samaje Perine finding work with a former rival.
Jake, you're going to make me correct, because I just know people are going to. The Bengals did beat them 2 years ago, just not in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, but they also lost to them in the game, the last game that mattered.
No doubt, but I just can feel that's 3 times today. I promise
I don't care about the semanticists today. I'm just trying to make a joke. Samaje Perine is not a Cincinnati Bengal. He's a Kansas City Chief. And only about 3% of players that were waived got claimed. So remember that the next time you're really worried about a player the Bengals might cut and try to get onto the practice squad. And I'll continue to deliver this message year after year. Players do not get claimed on waivers very often.
Is Jamar Chase practicing tomorrow?
What?
I'm just trying to be critical of you again and try to get you to make a prediction that I can make fun of tomorrow. Anyways, all right. Yeah, I let's talk about the guy that they added. They added a defensive end. They added a defensive end. They added a guy who, one, they're familiar with because they watched him when they were watching all that Miles Murphy tape. 2, he was drafted. He's former 5th rounder in 2023. Coaching change in Washington. Had a nice preseason. Didn't make the roster there. And I think there are some Commanders fans that are pretty bummed that he didn't make it to their practice squad.
And was one of the players when we were tracking pre-draft contact for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2023 that the Bengals did have pre-draft contact with. That's KJ Henry, edge player out of Clemson. He was a little bit older coming out, part of that COVID extra years than college class, but along with Miles Murphy, where they of course had a presence at the Clemson Pro Day, they did also talk to KJ Henry there, and honestly thought that he could have been a target for the Cincinnati Bengals that year. And you're right, it was a coaching staff regime change in Washington. Most of their 2023 draft class is no longer with the football team, and KJ Henry was one of the more attractive options on the waiver wire period at any position after he had a strong camp and strong preseason. According to Pro Football Focus, a pass rush win rate this preseason at 20%. He had 10 pressures over 3 games, 5 of those coming against Miami in the second preseason game he played for the Commanders. But a guy that doesn't necessarily have all of the measurables you would want. That's why he was drafted in the 5th round, but a high motor guy who has some nice initial quickness to his game and provides the ability to play on the left side. And where Cedric Johnson is going to play on the right side, Joseph Osai primarily was working on the right side. Joseph Osai in practice today, working more on the left side where Myles Murphy had been getting work before he went down with the injury. Henry can play that left side and has a little bit of experience on both sides at the NFL level, including this preseason, but a pretty good signing as far as you can do on cut down day. When you get a draft pick from a good school who has some good preseason production and some positive reviews from people who cover the Washington Commanders for continuing to evolve, there's reason to have some optimism for KJ Henry's ability to contribute to this team.
Yeah, I think it's probably, and I messaged you this, it's probably the best you're going to do. Unless you're going out and you're getting a veteran, and veterans are probably going to want X amount of money or guarantees and reassurances that they're going to get a significant amount of playing time. And the Bengals, they want to give Myles Murphy a significant amount of playing time, probably starting week 5, the moment he can come back from injured reserve. Like, I think that's part of it. And they clearly were interested in KJ Henry. And I'm sure there are scenarios where he ends up being a Bengal last year in the draft. Those things, you know how the draft can be. And so you mentioned that they met with him. And so to get someone who played in 10 games last year, had a sack and a half, had 4 tackles for a loss, like, he's been in NFL games, and now he can hopefully, along with Cedric Johnson, be some younger rotational pieces that you can use when needed to spell these veteran, more proven defensive ends.
More proven, more veteran in the NFL. KJ Henry, not exactly part of the youth movement per se. At 25 and a half years old, he turns 26 in January. So he was an older rookie, just in case, you'd like to correct me when you're worried about people correcting me in the comments. People come after you for the youth movement kind of comment around KJ Henry. He is a little bit older for a second-year NFL player.
See, I don't think anyone was going to do that, Jake, because he's still in his second year. And
I don't think anyone was going to come after me either for my innocuous Samaje Perine joke, but maybe
all I know is Travis Kelce fumbled on the field behind me because Jermaine Pratt forced it, and the Bengals improved to 3-0 against the Chiefs with Joe Burrow. That's all that I just feel like people would point that out. That's all. I really wasn't trying to correct you. I wasn't. But you know what I'm going to correct you on? 25 isn't old.
No, it's not old.
Hater.
It's young. I'm 36. Talk about old. To make room for KJ Henry on the 53-man roster, there's some roster gymnastics occurring. For now, Trayon Williams is not a Cincinnati Bengal. Trayon Williams took to Twitter as people got the news, as the Bengals announced that he was cut, not waived. He is not subject to waivers as a vested veteran at this point. He was cut to make room for KJ Henry on the 53-man roster. He tweeted that it was just roster gymnastics, nothing to worry about, said Williams. And that could mean he's returning to the practice squad, but judging from the tweet, I would imagine he will be back to the 53-man roster sooner than later. I don't think you're out there celebrating, making light of getting cut if there's also like a, $700,000 pay cut associated with it. He probably thinks he's returning to the 53-man roster, probably for good reason. And we'll see what then the corresponding move is. And maybe there's some clues out there with some of the other additions the Bengals are trying to make to the practice squad.
Yeah, I think fully expect to get that press release Thursday. I would imagine it just gets done Thursday, and Trayon Williams is signed to the 53, and something else happens. And the something else could be pretty interesting. And it's a matter of who and when. But Trayon, I expect him to be back on the 53-man roster, not the practice squad, but we do know a decent amount of players that are on the practice squad. We will get to them coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the app that you should download right now. Whether you're going to the Reds game this weekend, maybe you want to check out, a game that's going to be here in 11 days on September 8th. Yeah, that's Bengals and Patriots at Paycor Stadium. Gametime has a new feature. It's called Gametime Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It filters out all the fluff so you can see all the incredible deals on the great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And they have other features that are just super convenient and awesome, all in pricing, so you know there aren't any hidden fees that are going to surprise you when you go to check out with Gametime. Also, the panoramic views from your seats, take advantage of them right now by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
We got a lot of details about the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad, James. A lot of what we speculated came to fruition. The one guy I thought there was a decent chance they would keep that they did not keep is Nate Gilliam, who, as of time of recording, as far as I know, has not landed on any practice squad at this point. We'll see if and where he ends up. But for the players that we thought they'd bring back, a lot of them did come back. We'll go through the list. Cam Grandy, a tight end that Zac Taylor has spoken highly of when given the opportunity to do so, back on the practice squad at tight end. The Bengals keep 3 wide receivers. I'm sure you're loving this, James, on the practice squad, and Shedrick Jackson, Kendrick Pryor, and Cole Burgess. So 3 wide receivers there. A couple of offensive linemen, and Trey Hill, who does come back to the practice squad after being cut. The only draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe, on the practice squad, Trey Hill. And that is along with Devin Cochran on the offensive line. Logan Woodside, the current practice squad QB. Honestly, a little surprised there, but Woodside did show some ability this preseason. I just thought they might go external at quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, Dominique Davis is the only defensive interior player on the official list of practice squad players, although there are reports out of Dallas that another defensive lineman is joining the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad. We'll get to that name in just a minute here because it is one of the more interesting external names to think about. Along with Dominique Davis is cornerback Jalen Davis, who, after he was cut as a vested veteran, did not have to go through waivers. He's back on the practice squad. Shaka Hayward reportedly turning down other teams to come back to the Bengals practice squad. Nate Brooks and PJ Jules, the secondary members that make it. So no Allen George, PJ Jules, the safety, Nate Brooks, the corner. And those are the 12 official names. In addition to that, Justin Rogers, who was drafted in the 7th round by the Dallas Cowboys, reportedly is joining the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad, but that one is not yet official.
No, not official, but you like to see it because you need that nose tackle depth. And we were wondering where it was going to come from. And I think this could tie together with what happens with Trayon. I think there's a real scenario that Justin Rogers gets to town Thursday or Wednesday, and maybe he's undergoing his physical right now. Who knows? And I'm in the building right now. It's Wednesday at 5:24 p.m. But undergoes his physical. You pass that, and you get him officially onto the practice squad, and then you can make room for Trayon Williams on the 53-man roster by exposing a J. Tufele to free agency or to waivers. I assume he would still be waivers. I think it's the last year he would be waivers. I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think that could be a realistic possibility where you don't want to be so thin at defensive tackle, and then you cut Tufele to add a defensive end, and then you lose him to someone else. Now, if you're exposing him to waivers, at least you have Justin Rogers on the practice squad, someone that I'm sure they're confident in. Or maybe another move is happening. I don't know that Tufele move is the move. The point is that could all be tied together as to why they went with Trayon, a vested veteran, and they're bringing him back tomorrow.
Yeah. Justin Rogers, you mentioned the nose tackle depth. Just to give a little bit more information about him, he was one of the nose tackles in this 2024 draft class. The Bengals met with essentially every single nose tackle in the 2024 draft class. Justin Rogers was on that list. He had a priority free agent grade from Dane Brugler, but folks covering the Dallas Cowboys not very happy to see him go. Thought that he should have, at the very least, been on that practice squad. And like the promise he showed, he's turning 23 in a couple of weeks. as if you're curious about his age as a rookie, but 6'3", 346. You're looking for a traditional nose tackle body? There you go. There you got one in Justin Rogers. And it wasn't a great nose tackle class. Some of the other names that we talked about, Jared Clark or I can't think of the others right now. Jared Clark is the one that came to mind because we talked about him earlier today. Justin Rogers is a fit for what they're looking for from a nose tackle body perspective. And there's some upside there as a run defender. So I'm pretty pleased with that move to get him onto the practice squad. Wouldn't be shocked to see him called up if they need him for certain matchups at certain points in the season. We'll
Maybe
see.
week one.
Yeah,
you know?
we'll see when and if that is week one. But a solid addition there to the practice squad. And that leaves 3 spots after Justin Rogers, if that one does become official. And I would expect that they will continue to look at external names there to fill those out. If they were guys that were with them throughout training camp, you would expect them to be on the practice squad today. So if there are some players that you were hoping to see back that were not back today, never say never, but the normal quote unquote path to the practice squad for players that are with the club for the entire summer, if they're going to be on the practice squad, usually it is that day after cutdowns. So would expect these other 3 to be players externally. And when you consider the positions, James, I would expect potentially another edge player. And right now there are no running backs on the practice squad. So we're looking for running backs. We're looking for probably some more defensive linemen, and that could round things out when you look at the texture of the practice squad right now and think about where they may need guys to be called up when we're looking at practice squad call-up players where they're thin on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I think the gymnastics over the next day or two, it's still taking shape. And that's honestly, that's the beauty of that. They're going to practice again Thursday. They'll probably be able to get these practice squad guys, most of them, in Thursday, get their feet wet a little bit. And then they can be in the playbook all weekend long and kind of get settled before Monday, where now you're talking about starting to get to game plan and get things ready to go. I am curious, though. I do think running back for sure, and in defensive line, and the Nate Gilliam one is weird. I agree. I'm surprised that he's not back. Maybe he's waiting to see what else is out there, because it is honestly, it's a crowded offensive line room. As much as we talk about offensive line, what's his path to playing, right? And maybe he's trying to find an easier path to playing because there's just such a stacked amount of guys ahead of him, which is going to be hard to do because a lot of these, I was talking to a veteran in the locker room. I don't want to say his name, but anyways, I was talking to a veteran in the locker room, and a lot of teams, they stick with what they know. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the 26 waiver claims. I mean, Jalen Davis, I wonder how many teams really considered that. Like, he's a quality player and he comes back to the Bengals practice squad, not subject to waivers. You don't have to worry about your order. Just got to sign him to your roster. And that didn't happen.
Yeah. And I thought it was noteworthy that Shaka Hayward reportedly turned down a couple of teams as well.
And there is, you could see his path, right? I think it's pretty easy to see Akeem Davis-Gaither 1-year deal, Joe Bocci 1-year deal. Like, there's a path for Shaka to be a part of the future for sure.
Well, they like him. Like, he was probably one of their last cuts along with Jalen Davis on the defensive side of the ball. Anyway, I think those are probably some of the last cuts they wanted to make. I do think that Shaka Hayward and Mumajong Meta were close. And a lot of people apparently think that's a hot take because people got really mad at me when I suggested that might have been close on social media. But Shaka Hayward also had a really good preseason. He just didn't get the hype that Mumajong Meta got as an undrafted free agent rookie, where Shaka Hayward has been around for a little bit of time. So glad to see Shaka Hayward returning, and very curious to see what the running back name will be. I know some fans were discussing George Holani. He returned to the Seattle practice squad. In addition to that, I've seen Deneric Prince talked about. We talked about Israel Abanikanda. He was not released by the New York Jets, but a rookie that did not make it to the Eagles roster and that did not return to their practice squad, Kendall Milton, is still out there and was a player that when I was looking at running backs before the draft this year would not have surprised me as a late round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals for the kind of player he is. 6'1", 220, a much bigger back. He's had good pass protection. He was good as a thumper for Georgia before he was kind of phased out of the offense, was not a bell cow for that team. That is a name that I think would bear keeping an eye on. Another one, Isaiah Thomas, an edge rusher from a couple of years ago in the draft that the Bengals had pre-draft contact with back in 2022, was released by the Cleveland Browns. I do not believe he's landed on a practice squad as of the time of recording. Those are some names that you could keep an eye on, in addition to, some other defensive tackles, some other running backs out there, I'm sure, that the Bengals could have interest in.
For sure. And it's going to be fun to see exactly which way they go. I think Milton is interesting. I do remember you mentioning him pre-draft. So who knows? Maybe that's one of their external additions.
And the thing about these guys, these external players that they're looking to add to the practice squad, is that these are guys that I think have a very legitimate potential path to the roster at this point. We're talking about some spots where the depth at the back of the 53 for the Bengals at running back on the defensive line right now is not very proven and is not necessarily very high ceiling. So for some of these guys they bring in, especially if they're younger players, rookies or second-year players, potentially third-year players that have a little bit of growth left, so a little bit of development left, if they can get some of that out of these players this year, you could see them active or finding their way onto the 53 at some point. And that's why these external spots on the practice squad are potentially very interesting to me. Or they could just be practice squatters that, do their job and help the Bengals get through this season by being good practice squatters. There's no other word for that, I guess. That is going to do it, though, for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. James, you have something you wanted to throw in there real quick? No,
nope,
you're good to
go.
That is the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. Until next time, hoo day, and have a good one.